Lovely to again see, and thank you for joining today. And again, as usual, we will start with a short mindful breathing exercise meditations to quiet our mind and to bring our mind in the moment and present. So watching the breath mindfully for a few moments. Then we can try to have good intentions for being here, thinking, may our time here become more helpful, beneficial, to improve our attitude, our mind. So our mind can be more compassion, more patience, more understanding. And may it become cause and condition to generate the wisdom and compassion. And through the wisdom and compassion, may we be as much help and benefit to others as much as possible. And may it be cause and conditions to achieve our highest potential, the fully awakened state. The state that is free from all the delusions, obscurations. Instead, that has perfect and completed all the positive qualities. So that we can be most greatest help and benefit to all sentient beings. And may us coming together, listening, discussions, be able to remind and inspire us to practice, to train, and transform our mind, our heart, so we can improve and get better and better. Okay. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create to listen to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. Sangye Sherab Soge Sonam Chanchu Bado Danega. Dagi Shushe Gibe Sonam Dola Penje Sangye Doba. Sangye Sherab Soge Sonam Chanchu Bado Danega. Dagi Shushe Gibe Sonam Dola Penje Sangye Doba. So, I think since a couple of weeks we have been kind of going through certain of the verses from this particular text that cover on wisdom, where we just spoke about one line where the instruction is to meditate on emptiness all the times. And through meditating on emptiness, through meditating on emptiness, whenever any attachment arises, being aware the object of attachment do not exist from its own side by itself, but it is only due to the, projections, due to many cause and condition coming together and our mind projecting it. Therefore, the object do not appear as, even though that does not exist as it appeared to us. And therefore, by understanding and recognizing, it's just like illusions. And through when we have that understanding, then we don't get so attached to that. Same way, whenever any aversion arises, again recognizing the object of aversions, even though it appears to our mind as is so bad from its own side, objectively, but again, recognizing, due to certain many cause and condition together, then our mind projecting it, and due to that, then we believe that, and due to that, then we have strong aversion towards that. But that object did not exist as bad as it appeared to our mind, and therefore it's like an illusion. By seeing like illusions, so again, not having a strong aversions. So that is more or less what we have kind of talked about discuss about. And before I go a little further, there was some kind of, I guess, cautions or points, some of the points that are raised by one of the students in concern to few different points of that we have discussed, one on compassion and one on emptiness. And so maybe I thought maybe I will kind of touch on that. If it can kind of clear some of those points. One of the points is that, if we cultivate compassion through practice and meditations, that can make oneself more vulnerable and more easy to manipulate it by others. And so to that point, what I will say is, there's different level of compassions. One is what we call emotional compassions. You just become emotional when you see someone's pain and suffering. We feel like it's compassion, but it's more kind of emotional. And that kind of emotional compassion is very different from the compassion that we, in the scriptures that they talk about cultivating through certain technique of meditation and practice. It's not just an emotional that can just come because you encounter certain situations, but it is something that you generate based on certain understanding, So therefore, when you become too emotional, then definitely that can be possible for someone to take advantage of that, exploit, and make oneself more vulnerable and easy to manipulate it. It is possible, because when you become that emotional kind of thing, you cannot, in that moment, you are unable to use your, sometimes unable to use your wisdom, And so, but the compassion that is based on reasoning, understanding, and wisdom, that cannot be, easily manipulated. That cannot be easily be, that doesn't make you vulnerable. It makes you more strong. That makes you oneself more strong, not vulnerable. It's the source of inner strength, and that kind of emotional compassions, without the wisdom, some of the teachers even use term, like idiot compassions, of course, it's some kind of, that is something kind of new term that some of the teachers kind of use, as idiot kind of compassions. That is, and because, it's like, I see someone, if I see someone, taken away or drawn away by the current of the water in the river, and then I feel compassion with that kind of emotional, without any kind of, and then without thinking, even I don't know how to swim, you just jump into it. Thereby you are unable to save the other persons and you put yourself in danger. Whereas you have the compassion based on the wisdom, you feel the compassion, you want to save that person, but you will be thinking properly, how can I do that? Maybe there are many different ways of saving that person without putting yourself and without losing yourself, not being able to help other person, at the same time you put yourself in danger and you lose your life. So that will be more kind of the idiot compassions, that kind of emotional compassions, and that can be that, but the one which is based on wisdom and that was based, that cannot be that, and that is what we are talking about here in all the teachings, all the Buddhist teaching and practice that encourage us, that advise us, that instruct us to cultivate through meditation and practice to develop that compassion is based on that understanding of wisdom, based on that, and so I wanted to kind of differentiate that two things. Secondly, I wanted to kind of touch on whether someone become more vulnerable and easy to be exploited if you are more compassionate, or if you are more frustrating and angry persons. My belief and my observation, impressions, and experience is when someone is impatient, frustrated, angry, they are the most vulnerable and object of being exploitation from others. Not when someone is a very compassionate and kind person. When someone is a kind and compassionate, their mind is much more calm, peaceful. When your mind is much more calm, peaceful, it's much more difficult to be exploited and you become less vulnerable. If you look all over the world throughout the history, different leaders, whether it's a political leaders, whether it's a spiritual leaders, whether it's whatever different leaders who have exploited other people, is when people are frustrated and angry with something. When the people are angry and frustrated with something, whether it's a political issue, whether it's a spiritual issue, whether it's the economic issue, whatever, there's a lot of things that people are experiencing, a lot of frustrations, a lot of anger, a lot of hatred because of particular situations, unpleasant situations. And when you are in that situation, then if someone want to exploit that, then they can easily exploit that. And that is where they exploit someone, that is where someone becomes most vulnerable. Not when they have compassion and when they don't have that kind of frustration, anger, and hatred. That is where a lot of terrorists, they recruit that. They recruit, people who are very frustrated and angry with something, the system, or maybe about the system itself, or maybe because of certain situation, that moment, in that time, or maybe they're frustrated and angry with their own life. And so that frustration and anger, they might have a different reason and forth. And that is when, when someone want to misuse them for their own personal gain, when they want to exploit them, that is where they are able to do that. So not when someone is in true love, compassion, without that kind of anger and frustrations, but it's the other way around. So therefore, I don't believe, I don't believe when you have that kind of true compassions, that you will become more object to more vulnerable and exploitations. I believe when you are frustrated, there's so much frustration and anger, that is where you will be more vulnerable and object to be more exploited, So I wanted to kind of touch that, because that was one of the kind of points of caution one of the students have raised that point. So, then to kind of have a little bit of clarifications. And secondly, about the point of when it on emptiness, because last time we talked about emptiness, when you analyze, even though object appear to exist, by itself from its own side objectively, but when you really try to analyze, you cannot really pinpoint within the object itself, within the parts that make that objects, or outside of the part that make objects. That was what we talk about. And so to that, if that's the case, then wouldn't there be a karma? How can there be karma? But karma exists due to certain cause and conditions, certain results are experienced, and therefore, and so there is a sense of seeing that, contradiction between those two things. If there is empty and you cannot find within that, then how can there be a karma? And it is a kind of difficult point that has been always not easy points, even among the great scholars, even among many of the Buddhist great scholars, that's where some of them has been unable to understood that fully. And those are great scholars, very intellectuals, and who have written and come out with some of the greatest ideas and greatest philosophy and all. Even they have been able to struggle of understanding, not to be understood how they are not contradicted, not contradictions. How can, while it is emptiness, at the same time there is the function of law of cause and effect, the karma. How that is possible? I think that has been always there. It hasn't been easy subjects, and even among a lot of modern scholars, a lot of modern scholars, when many of them modern Western scholars, when they were reading Nagarjuna's writings, they didn't understand fully what his thoughts are. So they thought he was nihilism. He's rejecting everything. At the very beginning, a lot of them thought he was some kind of nihilism, who was rejecting everything, rejecting law of cause and effect, rejecting functioning of anything. That is how they felt when they read all his books, his writings. So again, those scholars are not very smart, very smart people. Even they get confused. Even they couldn't understand fully, couldn't grasp fully of that. And so it is. That is. But whether it's a Buddha, whether it's and also if you read Buddha's teachings, especially those sutras on personal paramita, like Heart Sutra, Dhammapada Sutra, and all that, is that there's no form, no feeling, no discrimination. There's all no. It's you might feel like he's kind of rejecting everything again. Is someone who doesn't have studied enough, who doesn't have done enough research. When they read it, it seems like that he's rejecting all of that. But the Buddha, Nagarjuna, they all clearly mention of the functioning of law of cause and effect. Due to certain cause and conditions, you experience certain result. Due to certain cause conditions, certain events are created. And when certain cause and conditions are changed, the event is changed. When certain cause and conditions are changed, the experience change. They don't deny that, but they actually promote that. So how can it be at the one point they say there is cause and effect and a result, and on the other side they say all is empty, and if you try to find, you cannot find. How can that be? It's either they must be crazy or they must be taking some kind of substance at that moment. Where they are saying something now, something else, and maybe tomorrow they say something else, contradictions, So again, it might feel like that a little bit sometime, but again, if you study the whole, you cannot understand their real thought unless you read and study all of their writings. Just by selecting one writing or one particular that, you would not know the full of their full intent or their thoughts. And that is why studying, especially when it comes to emptiness, studying extensively become important, because it's not easy subjects to begin with, even intellectually. And practicing and having realization is another level, experiential understanding. But even just to have intellectual understanding is not an easy subject. So having that kind of cautions is a caution that has been raised by so many others in the past. As I mentioned, even among those many Buddhist scholars and in the past, and then many others. That is, and so again, but the Buddha's thought, Nagarjuna thoughts, all their thoughts, there's no contradiction to that. But not only there are no contradictions, because there is law of cause and effect, therefore there is empty, because they are empty. Because it's empty, therefore there's a law of cause and effect. So therefore, not really there's no contradiction, but because there's law of cause and effect, therefore everything is empty. Because everything is empty, therefore there's law of cause and effect. So if we understand fully that, then I think we shouldn't have that conflict. Even you cannot pinpoint and find, if you try to analyze that way, and even you cannot find and pinpoint within the object or the part of is part of that make that object. Even you cannot find, or outside of that. But at the same time, when all these parts come together, and due to other cause and condition factors, then it creates certain functionings, and that functionings affect differently, and that produce different experiences. And so therefore, just because you cannot pinpoint and find doesn't mean it doesn't have any effect of that particular cause or that particular objects to function certain way and to affect some way. There's no contradiction to that. That shouldn't be contradictions. Just like, I don't know much, it seems to be quite complicating subjects, but whatever I have read a little bit, whatever I have seen, even from the science, quantum physics, and I've watched some of their presentations, when there was a discussion between the Buddhist scholar, like His Holiness, and other Buddhist scholar, and science on different, and one of them was on that, and I've watched quite a few times of that, and again, the same, even from the science point of view, from peace, quantum physics point of view, if there is no observer, the subjects, then there is no objects, and the object change according to the observer, whether it become a wave of energy or whether it become particle energies, it depends on the observers. Without the observer, from the object itself is neither kind of wave or neither is particles. Neither there can be any of that, but only when there's observer, then, according to observations, then there seems to be kind of, wave energy or particle energy and different things like that. But at the same time, even though you cannot, pinpoint without that observer, but it doesn't mean that there's nothing there and that it doesn't have the functioning and it doesn't affect. And it's the same, even though you cannot find and you cannot pinpoint, but again, due to a certain cause and condition coming together, and the observer, the mind imputing that objects, and due to that, then it has effect, and result due to a certain cause and conditions. So I don't see there is a contradiction in that two things. Let's use the examples. I think one another examples, because we are going to read that some of the examples that has been explained in this particular text, like illusions, and some of the example that you find in Sutra and many others, how all phenomena are like illusions, seeing everyone like an illusion, every phenomena like reflections of the moon into the lake, or reflection of your face into the mirror, or like a dream state. It's like a dream state, So there are many different examples, or that you see them. For example, if we take an example of that, and that example is the example of the way it appeared to that the things do not exist that way. That is the example of that. Okay. Even though in the mirror, you see your face inside the mirror, but it's not really your face. Okay. Or you see the image of moon into the lake, as though the moon is in the lake, but it is not really the moon. Even though it appears the moon is in the lake, but the moon is not in the lake. Even the dream, we might have dreamed, someone chasing me or someone doing nice to me, even though it feels like that someone being really nice and doing something bad, but it's not really happening. Even though it feels it was really happening in your dream. So these are those different, or the illusion created by the magicians, whatever their creation, even though to our mind or to appearance it looked that, but that is not what it is. It is just a trick. It's just illusions, and so that is the example of that. But at the same time, so even though there's no real moon in the lake or no real face in the mirror, but at the same time, there is a functioning of the mirror, there's the functioning of the lake. That is never been denied. Do you get it? There is a lake that has its own functioning, and because of that functioning, it affects differently. It affects it can serve as a water for the animals or human beings. It can be helpful to the plants and all of that. So even though it is an example of there is no real moon in the lake, so therefore the lake is empty of moon. That is the example. The lake is empty of the moon. At the same time, it never said the moon, there is no lake and the lake cannot function anything. There is a lake that functions and that effect, and that is the same with all of that. The dream, even in a dream, there's no real person hurting me or harming me, but at the same time, the dream has its own effect, and it does not deny there is the dream and the effect of the dream itself. And so through that examples, we can try to understand, those non-contradictions, to be something, to be empty or something, at the same time that it's able to function and it is able to give rise to different result, different effect, so that it doesn't deny or negate the cause and conditions, the effect, So I think that is, I think that is, again, I think that was one of the questions that was kind of raised. And I think that probably many people have that same questions, and same kind of struggle to see non-contradiction of those two things, while it's empty, at the same time there is cause and conditions and functioning of that, and that is the very difficult point when we talk about emptiness. That is the difficult point one, to be able to see both happening, to be able to see emptiness, at the same time to be able to see the functioning of that objects and the effect of that objects. If we put the other way around, while you are able to see due to certain cause condition, due to certain factors, due to certain conditions, there's something functioning, there's something that produces different results and so forth. At the same time, while he's doing that, at the same time, it's empty. To be able to see both. And so sometimes Lama Sopa Rinpoche, would use a term, Rinpoche's term, or Rinpoche way of presenting, while he says, is the existing, non-existence line is so subtle, so that is where we get confusion. While it exists, it does not exist. While it does not exist, while it exists. That is, I think, term Lama Sopa used quite often, because that's how we feel. While it feels like existing, at the same time non-existent. While it is not existing, at the same time existence, because of that kind of subtlety in that. And that is the very difficult point of understanding emptiness correctly. That is the way it is, to be able to see non-contradictions and functioning of both of them together, to be able to see how true reality, the reality of ultimate reality and conventional reality do not contradict each other's, and to be able to see both reality in the same object is at the same time, So anyway, I'm not sure whether that has cleared, if it has cleared any kind of the points, the cautions, the rest, but I think that is I can At this point, that is all I can try to clarify a little bit on that. So then if we continue the verse, where the next one says, should you hear unpleasant words, consider them nothing more than echoes. Echoes, not equals, echoes. Okay. So again, this is another example of, of things do not exist in the way it appear to us. Echoes, like when you echo, wherever the echo is coming from, it feels like the sound is coming from there, but actually the sound is not really there, it is somewhere else. It is just the echo of that sound. Someone who doesn't have understanding the echo, when they hear some sound from echo, wherever that is coming from, any kind of cliffs or any kind of rocks, they think, oh, there must be someone there. But that person might be totally in the other direction, totally other side. And so that is the deceptions. It is a deceptions. Even though it appears the sounds coming from that, but it's not there, it is someone from someone else. It is just the echoes. And similarly, if we see, when we hear unpleasant word, when someone criticizes us, when someone, talk bad about us, when someone try to put down us, humiliate us with their words, sounds, their speech, whatever, if we see that criticism, that sound, the speech, the criticism, the abusive speech, the hurtful, harmful speech, if we see that as inherently existing, and if we see it as real as it appears to us, then we will be more upset and angry. The aversion, the upset and angry will be much more strong when you see that is that speech is really harmful from its own side, is abusive from its own side, is criticism from its own side, all of that. Even though it appeared to us in that way, but then reminding ourselves that is not how it exists, If you try to see that, what is that harmful speech? What is that hurtful speech? What is that abusive speech? What is that criticism or speech? Is this the intentions of that person? Is this the speech itself? The word itself? It is the word itself. That word has many different sounds, is many different syllables, words that make that sentence. What if is each of them? If you try to find them, each of those parts are neither of them. And so then you begin to see, before you feel so solid and so real and so concrete, and when you do that analysis, it becomes less and less concrete, less and less solid, less and less real. And the moment we are able to do that, and the moment we are able to do that, then, when the more, as you started to feel less and less concrete, less and less real, less and less clear, less and less solid, your aversions, your anger also started to decrease, started to become less concrete. It started to be less intense. And that is what it is. That is what it is. To help to reduce our own strong anger, aversions, anger because of that. Because when we have anger, it doesn't help anyone. It hurts everyone. It hurts everyone. It damages everyone. and it harms everyone. And so therefore, we don't want to be in that emotions. We don't want to be that emotion. But at the moment, we cannot stop. We cannot stop from not having that emotion when someone engages in such behavior or actions or speech. But through training and practice and meditation, by seeing that way, through that, then when you are able to see through that training and practice, then you don't get so easily angry in that. But does that means, you become like indifference? No. Just like echo, even though the sound is not really there, but there is a functional echo. Do you get it? And the echo effect, even though it's not the sound is not really from there, it's just an echo, but still echo has its own functioning and it is still effect. And it still has its own cause and effect. And therefore, such speech has a consequences to others and that person itself. It has a different consequences. And therefore, we take actions or not take actions so that person doesn't keep on hurting and harming and putting you down or someone down or that, but then we do that without anger. We take the actions without anger. If we need to make them clear, that is not helpful. That is hurting someone. That is hurting whether it's you or someone else. That is making someone become very discouraged, whether you or someone else. Is destroying someone's confidence, whether it's you or yours. And so you want to make clear that they understand that is not helpful, that is not beneficial, that is not the way one should treat. So make clear that they don't do that again, but at the same time, the point is without anger. Without anger. And so the reasons that we try to do this meditation on emptiness and by seeing, like an illusion, like a dream, like a echoes and so forth, all of this is, to help us not to get, strong anger, ignorance, attachments, and so forth. That is all it is about, to help with our own emotions, to stop those negative emotions from becoming too strong, too intense, that harms and hurt everyone, and slowly to able to kind of, not even have even the subtle level of those negative emotions and completely eliminate those negative emotions. That is the main thing, but so I think we have to really understand the purpose of that, such understanding and practice and meditations. And so that practice, meditation, presentation does not deny or negate that person's actions has consequences. Such actions has certain effect, result to others and that person himself or herself. It does not deny that. While you see that is like an echo, like an illusion, like a dream, So I think but if we do analysis that way, is very interesting. Just as if you try to find the sound of that person's singing or whatever, chanting, where the echo comes, there's no really, if you check, analyze, there's no sound. I mean, there's no real, the chant of sounding, the sound of chanting or singing doesn't really come from that, the place where echo is coming. It's coming from someone's voice, somewhere else. In the same way, you try to analyze, what is that speech, Is it in my ear? Is it in that person's intention, mind? Is it in between? It is in, all of that is interesting exercise, Is in the word itself? Or is it in the intention of that person's? Or is it in the me who's hearing that? If there's no intention of that, can that word be abusive? Criticism? If I don't hear it, if I'm dumb, can that be criticism, abusive? Will I feel that hurt, harm? If I cannot hear it and I'm dumb, will it affect me the way it being affect me? It's interesting. So there's so many factors from so many point of view and area that create, okay, thank you. Depth, yeah. So regarding to that, I think I might have shared a story, we have a doctor, ear doctor from Australia who comes and do the more kind of mobile, he go to the villages and try to offer the service, so companies help him to do those different, that. And he shared one story. He says, he's not sure whether he's helping people or not. And then he shared one story, there was a couple, the husband is deaf. He cannot hear, So I think that was not in Nepal, but that was in Australia, okay, in his business. And then came to see and check, and then he found out, whatever problem and solution to it, and he fixed it, He fixed that he can hear it. Once he started hearing, their relation got bad. Because I think, sometime before he was able to hear, sometimes his wife is not happy because maybe whatever, we all, sometimes maybe she have to do so much or whatever, and she might be saying, murmuring or something, all this. So he didn't hear it, so it didn't affect him. It didn't affect him, so he was, but the moment he started to hear that, and so now he hears his wife, murmuring and not happy and saying something, and it affects his mind, and then their relations become a little more complicating than before, and so he was saying, maybe some truth and maybe some just a part of kind of humorous way, but he said, I'm not sure what I did was helpful to them or something not helpful to fix his ear, hearing. I'm saying this, I'm sharing this story because we're saying, many causes and conditions is in your hearing, because if I don't hear it, someone might say bad thing about me, and I might not just be okay, and I might not just feel is a kind of whatever I'm feeling now, criticism, abusive, whatever I might be feeling at the moment. So anyway, so that is whenever we have that whenever we hear any kind of unpleasant words, speech, then we try to apply that meditation on emptiness on that word itself. Meditation on word itself, and by seeing it's like an echo, and just being able to let it go. Being able to let it go, not hold them with anger, and hold them with a lot of resentments, So that is. And next one, should you suffer physical harm, see it as the result of your past actions. So again, here it clearly shows, there is cause and effect, there is karma, So looking at your suffering from the karmic point of view, So again, whenever we have any kind of physical challenges, difficulties, whatever that might be, physical pain, suffering, challenges, whether it is because of someone else, whether it's a human being, whether it's animals, maybe it could be it could be bitten by a dog, it could be bitten by another insect, whatever, physical harms. Or sometimes it could be, we didn't pay attention and it pricked by some kind of thorn. Sometimes we had a, poisonous food poisoning that affect physical harm, physical pains, and sometimes due to the change in the weather, sometimes due to, our lifestyles, food, eating lifestyles, sometimes due to, our, genes, DNA, whatever, that we have been carrying. So for whatever different cause and conditions, whatever different external immediate cause and condition that we can say, for our physical pain, physical challenge, difficulties, here the advice or instruction is, whenever we experience that, then we try to see it as a result of our own past karma and actions. Not only see as past result of our past karma or actions. That is not the main point here. It's not the main point is that. The main point is being grateful and joyful and happy because it's happening. That is not easy, but if you can do that, then you feel whatever you are experiencing is a meaningful, beneficial. There's higher purpose. There's more meaning into that. So therefore, it's worthwhile going through the physical discomfort, the pain, the suffering, whatever you are going through, because you are purifying, cleansing. That is the way we have to understand. Not just looking as a result of my karma. Because if you just look just as a result of my karma, there's nothing so much great meaning in that. But when you see, because experiencing that, I'm purifying so much of negative karma that I don't have to experience in the future. It's like you have the debt or 1 million or billion, and someone say, I can let you go all debt if you can pay me 1,000. How happy you will be. Do you get it? How joyful you will be. You have the debt of 1 million and someone says, okay, I will clear all that debt if you give me 1,000, if you pay me 1,000. You will be so joyful, so grateful, so thankful. Even though if we don't have to pay, we don't have to, even 100 will be, forget about 1,000. Even if I don't have to pay 100, that will be great. Even if I don't have to pay 10, it will be great. But if we don't have to experience the suffering, is of course great, and that should be the case. But when we do, despite trying all our best to cure, to relieve of that pain, suffering, challenges, but sometimes, we can only do, the doctor can only do certain things. Sometimes there's only certain treatments that can make you only a little bit of better or help you not to get not worse, and so forth. And so we have to live with that. We have to live with that, And so when you try to live with that, why don't we try to live with something joyfulness instead of bitterness about that? We have the option, I have to live that way anyway, because that is now my new reality, my new situation. If I have if we have some kind of that kind of physical challenges, that you have to live with that. So, but to live with that, we have the choice. Either I can live so bitter about it. Why is it happening to me? Why did I do wrong? Why I don't deserve this. It shouldn't be happening to me. Why is it happening to me? And feeling so much bitterness about, for whom, I don't know what different people might have bitterness about many different things. We might have bitterness to ourselves. We might have bitterness for ourselves because we didn't take care of it before we were all of that. I should have taken better care of myself. I should have done this and this, and I didn't do all of that. Or we can be bitter about because I have this, because of that situation, this and that, and we can be bitter about something else. But basically, being very bitter about this, about the situations. And when you have to live your life, not only on physical challenges and pain, but then with that bitter mind, now you live with emotional pain and sufferings. So there's two, physical and emotional pain and suffering. And that can be extremely challenging and difficult. Now you have to deal with two challenges and difficult. Not only physical challenges, now you have to deal with the emotional, mental challenges. Or on the other hand, we make mind, I'm not letting, even though it's not easy, even though, I cannot do so much about this physical situation, these physical challenges, the suffering, the pain, but I don't want to be so bitter about that. I don't want to have such a negative feeling, bitter about it. Instead, that you want to choose to be more positive and live our life, whatever remaining, whatever that, to live with more positiveness, positive feelings, positive minds, And there can be many different practices, many different ways to feel positive and happy with such a difficult situations. One of them is from a karmic point of view, that seeing, by going through this, by experiencing that, I'm purifying so much of negative karma that I don't have to experience the result of that in the future. So I'm so grateful. It's like I have to pay 1,000 now, but I don't have to pay the 1 million anymore, the debt, you know. Wouldn't you be so happy that you had debt of 1 million, and then just by paying 1,000 that you don't all clear, you know? So that kind of mentality, true. So it's not just seeing, it's a result of my karma, but seeing we are purifying so much of negative karma by going through that. That is the key, that is the key. And that is why a lot of practitioners who have really practiced, they don't become bitter, but they become very joyful. There is a story of, Domdemba. Domdemba was a lay practitioner, and he was the main disciple of Atisha in Tibet. Atisha, of course, many disciples in India and Tibet. And in Tibet, his spiritual son was the Domdemba. He was a lay practitioner, and he was the one who actually really started the Katamba tradition. And extremely kind, compassionate, extremely dedicated, and so devoted to Atisha, all of that, so we can talk about his qualities, but on and on, but we don't. And it is mentioned at that time, in Tibet, there seemed to be leprosy was spreading very much. Leprosy was spreading everywhere very much at one time, in that time, And so, of course, in the old time, people were, afraid to be around the leprosy because they think that it is contagious, everyone. So they are kind of outcasts in some way, I don't know. I don't think that happens because I think that in the medical science we know it is not contagious.
Contagious.
Contagious. Thank you. Contagious. So touching them, hugging them will not have a leprosy. But in the old time there is that. So that is why people keep distant from them. But Domdemba, was so compassionate, he take care of the leprosy people, he took care of the leprosy people, and then he himself got leprosy at the end of his life. He himself got a leprosy at the end of his life. But he was never bitter about that. He was so joyful that. He was so happy and joyful that. He was so joyful and happy. He never was bitter about that, because he saw it's an incredible way of purifying. It's a sign of being purified. And it's a good sign because it's a sign of being purified, and we practice to purify, And so, and that is also mentioned in Dhammapada Sutra, where Buddha said, when you study the Dhammapada Sutras, when you study, recite, memorize, writing down, contemplating, meditating, sharing with others, teaching to others, and so forth, you can experience, by doing that, you can experience some challenges, obstacles in their life. By doing that, you can experience some challenges, some obstacles, some that. But then he said, and it is a good sign, because of you recite that, you purify so much negative karma of being the negative karma or to be reborn in a lower rebirth for so many lifetimes has been purified by experiencing whatever that obstacles are, and it's a sign of, it's a good sign, is going having that one, you know. And so that is where even in Dhammakaya, Buddha himself has mentioned clearly, and not only is mentioned clearly, that is how many of the practitioners are taking that on their heart, and that has helped them to be more positive and less bitter, you know. I don't know, some of you might have seen some of the, you know, video clip. I don't know where it is now. Probably it could be still in the FMT website. I don't know, in one of those Lama Sobas. Sometimes they have teaching and clips, you know. I've seen that before one. And when he had stroke, and when they didn't know he was having a stroke, but they found something, his speech problem, and they took to the hospital. And that is when they realized that he was having a stroke. And there is someone who took picture, you know, the Lama Soba Rinpoche, because of stroke, his right side was kind of paralyzed, you know. And there is that, he was trying to pull his hand, right side, but not being able to pull, you know. And he's laughing and laughing and laughing. So much laughing. Hilarious, you know, as though it's some kind of playing game, you know. For us, it will be so depressing, you know. Someone who does such practice, it will be so depressing. Now, the rest of my life, I cannot use my hand. That will come in thought, you know. The rest of my life, I will be paralyzed. But someone who has been practicing, who practice, they are able to find a way to be fun, way to laugh, way to be happy, even in the most difficult, even in the most worst situations. You know, that is because of the training. That kind of attitude, that way of looking at your life, that way of looking at your life with that kind of attitude comes because of those individual practitioners of their practice, you know. So all of us have the same potential. All of us have the same potential if we put effort to practice. If you put effort to practice, you know, of course, we all, you know, wish not to have any obstacles, problems, and everything to go smooth. But even something comes up, you know, some obstacles, some challenges, difficulties, and not only difficulties, some kind of chronic illness that we might have to deal with our whole life, even that. If we have developed a strong practice, even in those cases, you can still be your life, you can still be happy, joyful, cheerful, you know. Even in such situation, even in such difficult situation, your life does not have to be, there is a physical challenge, but mentally, emotionally, mentally, you don't have to be so miserable and unhappy and so bitter. One can still be, you know, joyful, cheerful, and happy, you know. And not everyone has that ability to do that immediately. So to reach that, we need to practice now. When we are not that state, when we are already in that state, it becomes more challenging. When your mind is already negative, it's hard to practice. And so we have to practice when our mind is still not so negative, and then you have already, through your practice, you have already developed certain way of thinking, certain way of attitude, certain way of looking things. And so even in those difficult times, then you can apply that immediately without much effort, because you are so used to that. You are so trained in that way. And then we can apply that, and so that's where the training meditation comes now, while we still are in a good, better condition and better health. Because you never know, you never know what might happen tomorrow to me or any of us, you never know what kind of situation can manifest in our life, what kind of challenges, what kind of difficulties, what kind of obstacle could manifest anytime to any of us. We never know. Nobody can predict that, And so, since we don't know that, we cannot take for granted that life is going to be as good as it is now, or even better. We can't take for granted that life is not going to turn around. It could turn around anytime, from good to bad, bad to good, or good to worse. All of that, there's all those possibilities we don't know. So therefore, it's much more better to train our mind through our practice. So whatever situation comes, that we have the tools to remain, to keep our mind calm, positive, and joyful, and joyful. That is the thing, So that is one way of. So that is according to that. And again, as we have mentioned before, also we can use this, our own pain, our own sufferings, our own challenge, difficulty, use that to cultivate and to improve our level of love and compassion and understanding towards other sentient beings. By experience ourselves, whatever we are experiencing, challenges, suffering, pain, by understanding there are so many other beings who are experiencing similar like me. I'm the not only one. I'm the not only one who is experiencing that. There are so many other beings who are experiencing similar. Some of them even maybe worse than me. So with your own experience, you allow we all have this seed of compassions, love, humanity. And a lot of that has been kind of suppressed now by environment, circumstances. So we allow that seed of love, compassion, humanity we have to grow, give them the space, the opportunity to grow and blossom it. And so to blossom it, to grow it, to improve it, we use our own suffering and pain to understand others' pain and sufferings. Now you know what it is like to be in that situation. Before, maybe we can just imagine, but we can't really know what is, how painful it is to be in that. And now with our own experience, we begin to understand, I understand all the other beings who are going through that, how much pain they might be going through, how much suffering they are going through with your own direct experience. Through that, you begin to have better understanding of others' pain and suffering, and feel for them, and allowing to feel that, and then to cultivate the love and compassion to grow and to increase and improve. And if we are able to do that, then from one instant, it's very unfortunate that whatever obstacles, suffering, pain that we are going through. On the other hand, we have been able to turn that into something positive, something good things. We have been able to turn that to practice more strongly, to to inspire us to practice the Dharma, to inspire us to understand others' feeling, pain, suffering, and to develop love and more compassion. So then in that way, it has been meaningful. The same level of understanding, compassion you didn't have before, now you are starting to have. Now you are starting to have, because of that experience. So therefore, even though it's a challenge on one point, but on other point, it has helped you to become more spiritual. It has helped you to develop more spiritual understanding, realizations. So that is very wonderful. That is wonderful. Something that you have tried before, but not being able to be successful. And now, because of your own such experience, you are being able to feel that. You are able to feel that. And so again, through that, again, so when you are able to do that, and when you see that, then you feel again very grateful for your situation, the obstacles, the suffering, challenges. You become very grateful because that open your eyes, that open your spirit, that help you to open your eyes, that help you to open your spiritual heart, your practice, your love, compassions. What can we ask more? Because that is something that we all inspire. That is something we all try to put effort so that our mind can be more open to our spiritual path, so that we can have more understanding and realizations of that. That's why we are studying. That's why we are trying to practice. That's why we are trying to put effort. And now this situation open all of that. This situation helped to open all of that. So therefore it's a kind of blessing in a disguise. It's a great blessing that came in the disguise of that obstacles, that problem, that situations. But in long term, in the end, it becomes the best thing, the blessed, that has really helped in our spiritual path. So, and we can apply that to all of that, not only with our physical challenges and problems and pain, but also with others, whether it's emotional problem challenges, mental problem challenges, or whether it is with, like the word that unpleasant words or speech that we talked before, all of them, again, reminding ourselves, I'm the not only one who is getting criticism. In the world, everyone is getting criticism. Even if His Holiness Dalai Lama gets a lot of criticism. Even the Buddha got a lot of criticism, and he continued to get a lot of criticism. So, from one point of view, it helped us to be, in a way, maybe a little less arrogant. If they get criticism, who am I not to get any criticism? Compared to what I am and who Buddha is, compared to who I am and what Dalai Lama is, if they get criticism, absolutely, I will get criticism. Is meant to happen. Is bound to happen. If someone talk bad about them, of course there will be someone who will be talking bad about me. If there are people who are trying to create obstacle for the success of their project, noble deeds, there will be someone who is trying to create some obstacles to me. That's bound to happen, So again, the moment you kind of understand and taking that way, it becomes less personal, because it is happening to everyone, even the enlightened beings. It becomes less personal, and you don't take it so too harsh and too hard on that. Definitely, it personally, it helped me, when I was in, positions, certain positions, whether as a headmasters in a Kopan, whether as a, acting abbot, whether it as a, board members in different board and all of that, when sometimes when you get kind of criticisms, for your view, for your, your actions, or whatever, so sometimes, I try to think in that way, and then it makes much more less personal. It make, or at least I feel it become less personal. I feel it become less personal. And yeah, when you feel it's less personal, then it doesn't hurt you as much as I would have been hurt if I take it too personal. And just knowing that that is the nature of samsara, and that is how it is. 10 people mean 10 minds, and there's always going to be differences. 30 people mean 30 minds, there's always going to be differences. 2 people mean 2 minds, there's always going to be differences. If you don't want any differences, you have to by yourself. Not interact with others, just by yourself. Then maybe you would not have a difference. But as long as there's 2 people, there's always going to be difference, because there's 2 different minds. And so when there's 2 different minds, there is always going to be someone expressing their view. And when someone expresses their view, it's different from your view. That is always going to happen. So it's all a matter of taking it too personal or not. We can take it personal, or we can take it that person has their own view and they're expressing their view. That's all it is. We have different personality, we have different view, different mind, different view, and then someone is just expressing how they feel it and what they think, and just their view. That is all. It's not like someone's kind of attacking you necessarily. They are just expressing how they feel it and their view. And it could be totally opposite of your view and your feelings. But that's nothing personal, And so to be able to contemplate and reflect in that way, and so we feel less, personal, and then you don't get so much hurt. If you don't feel hurt, then you don't have to defend and attack the other persons. When you become hurt, then you try to defend yourself, and when we try to defend ourselves, then we attack the other persons. That is how it becomes, And I like example in soccer, I guess maybe it is an old game, I don't know, but because I'm kind of soccer fan, and when I was young, I used to play soccer. So there is saying, in soccer, the best defense is the attack. That is what they're saying. The best defense is the attack. But I think not in just soccer and game. I think that is how everyone kind of more or less feel like that. That's how we feel. We feel like we need to defend, and the way to defend is attack the others. You see also with animals, isn't it? When animals are scared, fear, they want to defend. And when they want to defend, whether themselves or their children, then they attack you. And that is the same with human beings. The way we try to defend ourselves is to attack other persons. And thereby, then, the situation gets worse and out of control. And then it hurts everyone. Then it hurts yourself, others, and so many other beings who are involved. It hurts others and all others, friends, families, all others who support that person. It hurts you and everyone who is connected with you, everyone who support you. So it's not just two beings, but now it affects so many other beings indirectly. Not only it hurt one person, but it hurts so many other beings. When I attack someone, then indirectly I'm attacking all their families, all their friends, everyone who care about that, everyone who love that, everyone get hurt. Everyone who support that. And so therefore, but we don't need to do that if we don't feel hurt. And so that kind of practice, meditations, help not to get hurt yourself, not to feel hurt yourself, and not to hurt others as well. So, okay, so we do the dedications. May all beings everywhere plagued by the suffering of body and mind obtain an ocean of happiness and joy by virtues of my merit. May no living creature suffer, commit evil, or evil fall ill. May no one be afraid and belittled with a mind which down by depression. May the blind see form and the deaf hear sounds. May those whose bodies are worn and torn be restored on finding repose. May the naked find clothing, hungry find food. May the thirsty find water and delicious drink. May people poor find wealth, and those who weep with sorrow find joy. May the forlorn find hope, constant happiness, and prosperity. May there be timely rains and bountiful harvest. May all medicine be effective and wholesome prayer bear fruit. May all who are sick and ill quickly be free from their ailments. Whatever disease they are in the world, may they never occur again. May the frightened cease to be afraid, and those bound be free. May the powerless find power, and may people think of benefiting each other. For as long as space remains, for as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you. And if anyone have questions, if you haven't had the opportunity to ask today, please write it down and either send it or ask next time. And again, I think we discussed so much, of so many different, and even though we might not be able to implement all of them immediately, at least maybe you might find one particular from everything that we discussed. Maybe there's one particular that kind of feel like, you kind of connected, or you feel like that might be helpful. At least you find something and then you try to apply that as much as possible. I think that is the key. And we might not be successful to have a result immediately, but if you put on practicing, and with the time, with the practice, you will have more better result with the time. Okay, thank you, everyone.